So if I really want to walk with love and operate in love in myself without hypocrisy and have truth, then there are two things that I need. The first is to have love divine expression and also go through the three phases of love to meet with self. All right, welcome everyone to today's spiritual mindset class hosted in the Promised Land. And if you're part of us, it means you're part of the Promised Land Wellness Tribe. And in today's teaching, I feel excited about today's teaching because it has a lot to do with how we relate with life experiences. I want you to think about a life where you have a healthy and a balanced approach to the experiences around you, where you are more emotionally and mentally stable, where you have where you experience less stress, where you experience joy and gratitude in every domain of your life without having to force gratitude. I also want you to reflect on a life whereby everything around you feels so good. And it feels like you have a cheat code that would enable you experience so much joy in your life. So the question now becomes, how important is it for you to be mentally stable, emotionally regulated, and have balance in all aspects of your life? How important would that be for you? Because here's the good news. I stumbled upon a framework that would help you improve your well-being as a person to experiencing a holistic well-being, to experiencing joy, gratitude, and so much positive energy in everything that you do. And while I feel excited about bombarding you with all of this information, apparently I cannot. And I stumbled upon this framework in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 9. Hence, I termed it love's framework for holistic well being. A guideline, series of principles that would help you experience a holistic well being. So, this information, this resource, this principle, today's teaching is going to be for you if you're seeking ways to experience so much positive energy, gratitude, and balance in your life. And the first of this framework is let love be without hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. I hope I got that right. So this is a continuation. So the first framework in the book of Romans chapter 12 verse 9 says, let love be without hypocrisy. What does that mean? It means to do what you preach, to preach what you do. We often find ourselves saying something that is completely in opposition to what we do. We often find ourselves doing something that is completely in opposition to what we say. And yet, for some reasons, we believe we love ourselves. But I'm here to say that if you believe that you love yourself, aka self-love, if you love yourself, and the words that you say, either in your heart, in your thought process, or to people, is in complete opposition to the things that you do in real time, then such love is hypocritical. And if it is hypocritical, then it is false, because love by design, love by nature is true. Love is true any day, anytime. So it means the love you have for self is false, and I'll prove it to you. How many of us here can think or reflect on days? You probably have those days where you've created pattern, or you're probably still creating that pattern whereby the things you do from your subconscious mind completely opposes what you say from your conscious mind. Or the things you say from your subconscious mind completely opposes what you do from your conscious mind. A lot of us can testify to this. A lot of us can reflect to can if we reflect, I'm sure we'll find days where we do this. We say something from our conscious mind, and then what we do from our subconsciousness, from our subconscious mind, is completely in opposition. Why? Because our subconscious mind and our conscious mind do not tally, they do not agree. And as such, there's no alignment. That misalignment is the hypocrisy that you have in self. This is as basic. Hypocrisy here is as basic as saying to self that you're going to wake up 6 a.m. in the morning. You confess it, you desire it, you probably say it to a few persons, but somehow you catch yourself engaging in habits, activities that makes you wake up 9 a.m. in the morning. This is hypocrisy. Or better, another example would be saying, I don't like the way I look like. I like to I like to work out and trim down and become fit. It's a very basic example. And then you keep engaging in activities that makes you extremely stressed. You keep engaging in activities that makes your feeding habits extremely poor. Hence, you keep getting or going out of shape, making you look physically unfit and unhealthy. So that which you say and that which you desire is completely in opposition to the things that you do, and as such, the pattern that you create is in complete opposition to what you believe or you desire for yourself. This is hypocrisy. I remember, for me, I've always liked to hit the gym. I've always liked to work out. I've been working out since I was a teenager. And then I also remember far back as a 2023, 2024, between 2022 and 2024, I was weighing around 110 kg to 115 kg. And I kept working out, trying to, burn all of this fat and just, look healthy, to lose weight. I was hitting the gym. I didn't know what exactly I was doing wrong, but nothing was changing. Until I had a mindset shift in 2025, which was like last year here, that helped me change the way I behaved, change my habits. And I tell you, in 1 year, I had dropped from 115 to 94 kg in weight. So it was not about the workout, it was about the habits. It was about the alignment, the agreement with self. Or better still, you could say, hey, I want to have, I want to get to stop drinking. I'm addicted to drinking, I'm addicted to smoking. You confess it, you desire it, you say it. But you often find yourself engaging in activities that takes you right back to smoking, right back to drinking. This is hypocrisy. And the Bible is saying, if you must love yourself, it has to be without hypocrisy. So you dare not say, I love myself, when there is no agreement and an alignment with yourself, when there is no truth with self. Now you may say, oh, it's easy for me to say, I used to be that guy that drank a lot. When I lost my father, Smoking was one thing I resorted to. It was the one way I knew how to, numb my feelings and become whole again. I liked the way I felt, honestly. But I also realized that by the time I began to get my senses back after smoking, I hated the way I felt. And then one day, I asked myself, I questioned, it was a matter of, is this the person I would like to be? I had to project the future version of me and then question myself, in what part of this version of me do I see myself smoking and drinking? When I got clarity about my answer, I had to stop. And here's the thing, when you have an understanding of whom you desire to be, and you have the ability to bring that person into being, stopping or quitting an addict becomes easy. You realize it is not as difficult as you think it is. I quit drinking immediately. You see, this is so important because you see, the Bible says to love your neighbor as thyself, which means if you get to love people, you have to love them just the way you love yourself. It takes you to loving yourself first before you get to love other people. True or false? Which also means you can only love people to the capacity that you know how to love, especially yourself. If from 0 to 10, the rate at which you love yourself is 3, it means you can only love people from the rate between 0 to 3. You cannot love somebody or people around you beyond 3. You can only love people to the capacity at which you can love yourself. If the rate at which you love yourself from 0 to 10 is 5, you cannot love someone else beyond 5. Which also means if you're not genuine with self, if your love is not genuine with self, it is impossible to be genuine with others. If your love is hypocritical, if your love is false, then it means that your relationship and the supposed love you think or believe you have in people is just as false. Do you understand this? So it is important, it is imperative to understand that the level of love that you have in self and the quality of love that you exhibit in self is the level of love that you also exhibit for others. So we must understand that love, which is true by nature, must be without hypocrisy. And a lot of us, we go around with false love, believing that we have self love. Right? And why this is so beautiful, aside from being scriptural, these forms, this principle, let love be without hypocrisy, forms the foundation of positive psychology and humanistic psychology, confirming and agreeing to three principles of this aspect of psychology. One is authenticity. Authenticity. Second is congruence. Third is unconditional positive regard. So this principle, let love be without hypocrisy, which is scriptural in the book of Romans chapter 9, agrees with these three principles here, which you find in positive psychology and humanistic psychology. Now, for authenticity and congruence simply means letting your inner world match your outer world. A state where your inner world matches your outer world. Your inner world here represents one, your will, two, your feelings from your emotions, three, your beliefs, your thought process. Your outer world, on the other hand, represents what you say, what you do. So you're only an authentic person when that which you feel, that which you think, your belief is in complete agreement and alignment with your behavior and what you say. You say a person is congruent when that which he feels is the same with that which he does. Some persons, for some reason, try to be performative. And love is not performative. Love, you don't say, I love myself and try to perform for people to clap hands for you, to get people's accolade. Then that is not you being authentic. You don't try to displease yourself in order to please people, so that you get to be impressive, because love is not impressive. In the case where you displease how you feel in order to please people, to impress people, that is not you being congruent. That is not you being authentic. That is you being an hypocrite. And I'm here to say, if you consider that you love yourself and you fall among people who try to please people, who try to, get this social accolade and performance and spotlight, you are losing yourself in the process. It is false. It is hypocritical. That is not love. Unconditional positive regard, on the other hand, means accepting yourself for who you are and embracing the values of the person, the version of you that you desire. These three aspects are what forms the foundation of positive psychology and humanistic psychology, which is only possible by loving yourself without hypocrisy. Because love by nature is true and not false. I was studying the works uh, of Carl Rogers. By the way, he was the one who defined congruence as a state where your feeling matches your behavior. And I was studying his work, and then he said there are two aspects of self. By the way, if you are hypocritical, before you say a person is a hypocrite, it means there was an interaction between two things, either two force, two energy, or two persons, to be able to say or deduce the hypocrisy in that energy, right? So if you see a person who is being an hypocrite, it is because there was a relationship between himself and the person, or an interaction between his energy and the external energy, to be able to define and point out or deduce the hypocrisy. So, in other words, hypocrisy can only be seen when there are two things relating or interacting. Now, so if you're a hypocrite in self, it means that two aspects of self, right? The relationship within self or between self is what gets to determine whether or not your love in self is hypocritical or true. I say that again. To determine the quality of relationship that you have in self is what determines whether your love in self is hypocritical or true. And I was studying the works of Carl Rogers, a humanistic psychologist, and he said there are two aspects of self. Two aspects of self. Valeria, you and me. He said there are two aspects of self. He said, one, you have your true self. This is something, if you're writing down, this is something you like to write down. If you're watching this after the live teaching, you might want to record, you might like to, write this down. It's also, first, there's your true self. Your true self refers to who you are right now, flaws, your strength, your skills, the beliefs that you have about yourself, and how you feel about yourself. Right? And then you have your ideal self. So let's put this as who you are right now. Who you are right now. Right now. So this is your true self. Who you are currently. Your beliefs, your feelings right now, your skill. And then you have your ideal self. Your ideal self is the idealized version of you, which is the future oriented version of you. This is your ideal self. There are two aspects of self. Right? Now, according to Rogers, he said, it's one of the goals, in fact, the biggest goal, the main goal of therapists is to see how they could close the gap between your true self and your ideal self by fostering unconditional positive regard. So by fostering unconditional positive regard, they see how they can use this to close the gap between your true self and your ideal self. And how they do that is they make you accept who you are in the moment, show gratitude for who you are in the moment, while you embrace the qualities and the values of your future-oriented self and operating with those qualities and values. And that is what unconditional positive regard is all about. So first you get to identify what your true self is, what you are good at, what you're skilled at, what your strength is, and then once you're able to identify that, you get to they get to make you appreciate, show gratitude for who you are, and just accept yourself for who you are without beating yourself up. And then the question now becomes, what are the values of your ideal self? What are the qualities of this future version of you? So once you identify the values, you are expected to begin to operate with these values. With the belief that when you accept this version of you at the moment and begin to operate with these values of your ideal self, which is the future-oriented self, the gap between your true self internally and your ideal self internally begins to close up. So this unconditional positive regard bridges the gap between your true self and your ideal self. Do you get it? Now, this means that the closer the gap between your true self and your ideal self determines, or rather, the gap, the closer, yes, the closer the gap between your true self and your ideal self result to you loving yourself with less hypocrisy. Do you get that? The closer the gap between your true self and your ideal self makes you love self with less hypocrisy. And then the wider the gap between your true self and your ideal self makes you walk with a lot of hypocrisy and less love in self. Makes you more hypocritical than having love in self. And do you get this? Do you get this? So, it means that one of my biggest goals as a person to be able to walk with love without hypocrisy, to love with love, walk with love, and have that truth in self to function with perfect alignment is to bridge this gap. And how I do that is by accepting who I am and operating with the values of my ideal self. Figuring out what qualities and values will my ideal self require of me this moment and begin to work with those values. And the more I can marry these two self and bring them into one, close the gap and bridge that gap, the more I get to work with love in truth without hypocrisy, which is the first framework for holistic well-being. And the wider the gap means the love I have or I believe I have is false, increasing my level of hypocrisy in self, which is false love. Are we getting this? So the question then becomes, how? How do I get to bridge this gap? How do I get to have this unconditional positive regard? Right? How do I get to love myself truly without being an hypocrite? Is that a good question? So if I'm going to love myself genuinely, if I'm going to love yourself genuinely, to be one with self and operate with truth, the question now becomes, how are you going to do that without being an hypocrite? To do that, I figured out that if I have to operate in truth, right? If I have to operate in truth, and if love is true, get this, if love is true, and I have to operate with truth, that means I have to walk in love that is true without hypocrisy, then what I want to do as a person is to find out how love gets to operate truly. What are the attributes of love? What are the expressions of love that gets me, that I get to give myself to so that I can operate truly in truth? Are you getting this?
Yes.
Right? So, in order to do that, figured out that love has what I call divine expression, which you may call attributes. Divine expression. Love has what I call divine expressions, divine attributes. In the book of, quickly, let's look at the book of Isaiah, chapter 11. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 11, verse 2, it says, the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of God. And then when you go to the book of Corinthians, the first book of Corinthians, chapter 1, verse 30, it says that, but of him we are in Christ Jesus, who became the wisdom from God. Now, if I was to replace Jesus and God with love, what that verse is saying is that, but of him we are in love, right? Who became the expression from love. So I know that love expression is wisdom. Love expression is knowledge. Love expression is understanding. So if I really want to walk with love and operate in love in myself without hypocrisy and have truth, then there are two things that I need. The first is to have love divine expression and also go through the three phases of love to meet with self. Now let's look at that. So the divine expression, God divine expression, one, you have the knowledge of God, the knowledge of God, or rather, let me just say, you have knowledge. Two, you have understanding, according to the scriptures. And then three, you have wisdom. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 8, the whole book of Proverbs, chapter 8 talks about how wisdom was talking, or rather, talks about, yeah, shows how wisdom has always been with God from, from the beginning, even before the beginning, confirming that wisdom is an expression of God. And just like we have it in the book of Isaiah, it says that the spirit of wisdom, it mentioned the spirit of knowledge, the spirit of understanding, and the spirit of wisdom shall be upon a person, just as the spirit of God is on a person. Now, what is knowledge here? Knowledge here represents the information given to you by love. Knowledge represents the information given to you by love, which means if you get love, if you get an information from love, then the information is true. I say that again. If you get an information from love, then the information is true. Because true knowledge you only get from love, and whatever it is that you get from love is a true information. So my question to you is, the belief that you have about not being enough, is that information from love? Is that knowledge from love? Because if it isn't from love, then the information is false. The thought of not being smart enough and the thought of failing every of your endeavors, where are you getting that information from? Is that information from love or something different? Because an information is only true if the knowledge is coming from love. Because you only have true knowledge in love that begets true information. And in your heart, you have encrypted information about yourself and how you see the world. So the question I'm asking you is, that which shame is saying to you about not being good enough, about failing, about not being the best amongst your colleague, whatever information that it is saying to you, is that information from knowledge? Is it from the knowledge of love? Because if it is not from love, then information is not true. It is false. So that's something you have to rethink. If you believe that you're a failure, I'm asking, is that failure, is that belief, that information that you have at the center of your heart, is it coming from love? So, true information you get from love, and then understanding refers to turning this information into life. When you have an understanding of the information given to you, that information becomes life in you. The reason why you know certain things, such as the need to wake up 6 a.m. in the morning, or the need to work out, or the need to aspire for the things that you desire to do, is because God gave you the knowledge, which is love. But the reason why you don't do them is because you do not have an understanding of that information. And as such, it is not enough life in you to drive you. The deeper the deeper you go into understanding of the knowledge given to you, the more that information becomes life in you and drives you. When you see a person who constantly walks out, it is because they understand something that you do not. And as such, they're not just operating from their own understanding. That information of what why they have to walk out has become life in them that drives them naturally. So they don't get to wait to pay for the gym. Anything can be a way to exercise their body. When you understand your assignment, when you understand what is given to you, you don't feel lazy. The life in you, that information that has been given to you, when you have an understanding of it, that understanding is what drives you to do. But it says, in order get understanding, because the information given to you by love is what gives you the information given to you. When you understand the information, it becomes life in you that drives you to do what you need to do. And then the wisdom. Wisdom here represents interacting with life, with the life in you. Interacting with life, with the life in you. So when you receive the knowledge from love, that knowledge becomes life in you based on your level of understanding of that information. And then you're said to have the wisdom of love when you're able to use that information to interact with the life around you, the experience around you. When you give yourself to this expression, what you would have is truth in self. When you give yourself to this expression of love, you work in alignment in self. Your actions, your words, your behavior, and how you feel becomes aligned. In simpler terms, the wisdom of love is the expression of love to the world. And that's what people see. So you may also say, oh, Moses, how do I get to unlock this truth? First, you have to meet with self to identify your ideal self and then your true self. And to do that, you go through the three phases of love, which is the second aspect that would help you love self without hypocrisy. And let's look at that. The three phases of love. Three phases of love. Of love. First is the discovery. The second is the acceptance phase. And then the discovery. Second is the awareness phase. And then third is the acceptance phase. The acceptance phase. So the discovery phase basically is where you identify all the information that you're yet to know about self. In the discovery phase, you want to identify your ideal self. You want to identify your true self. Basically, things that you are yet to know about who you are, what you feel, what you desire to be, your current challenges, your struggle internally, the things that causes you stress. So in the discovery phase, you find out you find out information about self that you do not know. That you do not know. Right? It may be present in your subconsciousness, but they're not present in your consciousness. So the essence of the discovery phase is to bring all the information from your subconsciousness into your conscious state. And then you have your awareness phase. Your awareness phase is where you begin to ask certain questions to finding out why you feel the way you feel, to finding out why shame or fear, this negative feeling, is saying what it has to say. The awareness phase is where you have an understanding of why you keep creating the negative behavioral pattern and why you keep engaging in negative emotional habits. And when people get it wrong in the awareness phase, in meeting with self, is you get to find out about all of this in the discovery phase. And when you begin to ask yourself why you feel this way, when you begin to find out the information about all of these things that you feel, you don't question love. You don't question to find out what love has to say about that which you feel, about or that which you have to do. And this is where you get stuck. So you're only focused on the lies given to you by fear, shame, and all of these negative beliefs that you have, and you're not present or focusing, or you do not give room to focus on the information that comes from love, which is true. So the awareness phase is where you want to get what love has to say in respect to all that has been given to you by this negative pattern in the awareness phase. Are you getting it? Which in many cases is usually contrary to what you find, to what fear says to you, to what shame says to you, and all of these negative patterns that you keep creating. And then when you get all of those data given to you by love, you want to come to the acceptance phase. The acceptance phase is where you make the decision to follow and exercise what love has said to you. This is the three phases of love that helps you meet with self to connect your ideal self and your true self. In the awareness phase, you get to have the knowledge, you also get to have understanding. In the discovery phase, you get to have knowledge about the things you never knew existed, but are now brought to your consciousness. In the awareness phase, you have both knowledge and understanding. And how you have understanding is meditating in the information given to you by love. You either do this by journaling, you do this by praying, you either do this by meditating on it day and night and studying the information given to you by love. If you have the grace, you may gain understanding in a day. Depends on how open your spirit is. In some cases, you may spend 3 months before you get an understanding of what has been given to you by love. But the moment you have an understanding and you're able to key into that understanding that has been given to you by love, contrary to the negative feeling in you, to the negative belief in you, that information becomes life in you. And that life naturally drives you to do what you need to do. And this, and the moment, and that those actions you take, the decisions you make, become the expression of love in you, becomes your interaction with the life experiences, showing the wisdom of love in you. When you have this, when you go through these three phases of love and you implement love expression in self, you get to walk with love without hypocrisy. This is how you walk with alignment with self. So talking about holistic well-being, talking about having positive energy, talking about having alignment in your spirit, your soul, your mind, your heart, and your body, your behavior, this is how you go about it. Giving yourself to knowledge in self, giving yourself to understanding in self, giving yourself to the wisdom of love in self. And you do that also by meeting self so that you get the knowledge, get the understanding, and exercise that wisdom by going through the three phases of love: discovery, awareness, and acceptance. If you have any questions, please do let me know in the comment section, and I'll be happy to take them. And if you're in the wellness tribe, you can drop your questions in the community. I'll be happy to take them. And please, if you do like this video, you like today's teaching, I want you to look forward to the second framework, love's framework for holistic well-being. What we just shared today was the first framework for holistic well-being, and then the second will be coming up in our next spiritual mindset class. Love to see you soon. And please do not forget to hit the subscribe button if you have not. Like and share this video with friends and family. Love you. Good job.